Behind me are the stones of Carrig Maibian Arthur, and they stand above the graves of King Arthur's two sons. And in some of the earliest Welsh chronicles talking about King Arthur, it was said that they killed the wild boar plaguing the countryside on the slopes of the Preseli Hills where they got the blue stones for Stonehenge. And after his sons died, they were buried underneath these two stones because in the battle with this wild boar, they were themselves killed. And these stones seem to be, I believe, sometime Bronze Age, so around 35 to 2500 BC. And they're built from the same stone material that Stonehenge itself was built out of, because the ancient Celtic people would take the stones from the hills and move it after about 500 years of having a ceremonial structure out here in Wales along the coast by boat and then down to Wiltshire. And I think it's a fascinating local folklore site because King Arthur has a lot of different sites associated in the hills out here. Directly behind the camera right now are the stones of King Arthur's son, and on the mountain up here behind me, it's actually in the center one on the slopes of the larger mountain, the largest mountain in the Preseli Hills, is Bed Arthur, or Beth Arthur, or the grave of King Arthur. Now, I don't like believing in the myth of the grave of King Arthur because a million places have said that to try to get tourism. Most famous being Glastonbury Abbey and different places in Cornwall, but I like to follow the legend of King Arthur that says he has no grave. He's sleeping inside of a mountain somewhere that people have intentionally forgotten about, and one day he'll return back to save the world for the Britons. But this is the Preseli Hills in South Wales, where he's very close to Cornwall, right across the channel, and there's the legend of King Arthur here as well. I think it's cool.
I think I know where it is.
That's a big mound of stones. I'm here at the church in Nevern, which is a fascinating Celtic holy spot. And to my left was not here when I last visited because it was surrounded by a stone box or a wooden box. But this is said to be the grave of Vortigern himself, one of the first high kings of Britain and the British Isles. And although Vortigern's name is not written on here in Latin, it appears to be a family member. And the family members of Vortigern would have been buried in the same family plot. And the church itself is a very sacred Celtic spot. If I could see the camera, you can take a look at the Celtic sacredness of this site because you have Vortigern's grave here, and then you have a river which runs along the side of the church. And apart from that, you have these sacred yew trees all around because they bleed. They're hundreds and hundreds of years old. And an 8th century beautiful Celtic cross with all of the amazing Celtic symbolism on it. Behind me is King Arthur's stone in Herefordshire, and the legend associated with it is, so King Arthur doesn't have that much lore on the surrounding countryside, but it's said that he killed a giant or a rival king right here on the hill, and that the grave is either the giant's or the king's. But some legends say it could be King Arthur's grave, but there's not many legends saying this because King Arthur traditionally was said to be buried under a mountain or lost somewhere and intentionally forgotten so that he might one day rise up and save the Brittonic people. And if you pan around, there's not many Arthurian legends in this part of England and Wales, but going further west, there's more and more sites associated with him. Behind me is Maen Llia, and this is an ancient Celtic standing stone in South Wales, just inside of the Brecon Beacons National Park. And it is right next to an old Roman road that would run through here, but the stone itself is probably thousands of years older than when the Romans invaded Britain. I believe it's Bronze Age, 3500 to 2500 BC. And close by here is another stone that is called Madoc's stone. And I'm hoping to see Madoc's stone, but it's getting to be a little bit rainy and it might be a little difficult getting up into the mountains, but we'll see. But the legend that's interesting about Maen Llia is that on Midsummer's Eve, which was a Celtic holiday, the shadow cast along the stone will touch the river behind it. And it led to the legend, at least evolving in more recent times, that the stone will scamper down to the river at night and take a sip of the water and then come back up. But I do think that there might be something to the fact that it was erected so that on Midsummer's Eve, the shadow does touch the water, which I think is pretty interesting.